You feel like something is out of place, but you don't know what. The days go by, and it seems like you're just going through the motions, surviving, smiling out of obligation. Inside, there's an exhaustion that has no name, a void that even rest can't fill. Maybe someone told you this is depression, that you need to medicate, distract yourself, or stay silent. But what if I told you that what you're experiencing isn't a flaw, it's a calling? You're not broken, you're disconnected from your essence, from your Stoic soul, from that part of you that was once steady, light, and clear. The part that knew what was essential, that could endure chaos with presence, that didn't seek applause, it sought virtue. But at some point, you drifted away, maybe trying to please others, maybe trying to survive. And that's why everything feels too heavy now. In this video, you won't find magic formulas, but you will rediscover forgotten truths. Together, step by step, we'll reclaim your inner strength. We'll show that the peace you're searching for isn't in the future, in someone else, or in the next self-help course. It's inside you, and it's alive. Write in the comments, "I choose to reconnect," because that simple choice can change everything, and your journey back begins now. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and keep walking with me on this journey. Some people believe they're living in deep depression when, in reality, they've only lost themselves. It's not weakness, nor failure, it's distraction. The world is too noisy. The rush, the notifications, the demands, they all suffocate the only place where healing begins: inner silence. But silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of self. And when we ignore that silence, the soul screams. But that scream is subtle. It shows up as causeless fatigue, unexplained discouragement, a desire to disappear, even when surrounded by people. Stoicism teaches that the noise of the world only overwhelms us when we forget the sound of our own mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself precisely to avoid losing his essence. His thoughts were like anchors. Today, most people drift, waiting for something external to give meaning to what's internal. But it won't happen. Because it's not about finding something out there, it's about remembering what already lives within, silent for too long. The Stoic mind, when awakened, knows there's no clarity without retreat, no strength without listening. Inner reconnection begins the moment you stop. Literally, stop. Turn everything off. Place your hand on your chest and ask with honesty, what's alive in here? It's not about meditating for an hour a day. It's about creating moments of real presence. 5 minutes staring at the sky, 10 breaths with awareness. That's healing. That's return. And that return, little by little, dissolves existential depression, like the sun clears the fog. But you have to be willing to listen, because what heals you isn't what shouts, it's what whispers. Pain never comes without reason. It's not punishment, nor bad luck. It's a language. And like any language, it carries a message. The problem is that most people only try to silence it, suppress it, medicate it, or run from it, without ever asking what it's trying to say. In Stoicism, pain is treated as a messenger of fate. Seneca said that what seems to destroy us might actually be guiding us. Pain only becomes an enemy when you refuse to listen to it. And like any ignored message, it shouts louder. How many times have you clung to a path that was eating you alive just because it was the expected one? How many times have you held on to relationships, jobs, or habits that drained your soul just to maintain the appearance of control? The silent anguish you feel today might be the echo of those small betrayals of yourself. You're not broken. You're misaligned with your Stoic soul, the part of you that knows what's essential, what's just, what's true. And every time you stray from that, pain shows up as a reminder. This is where Stoic philosophy stands out. It doesn't seek to eliminate pain, but to give it meaning. That's mental clarity. That's real emotional control, not pretending everything's fine, but understanding that pain can be a compass. When something hurts repeatedly, it's because one of your values is being violated. It's a sign you're trading your truth for crumbs of acceptance. Existential depression often stems from this constant negotiation with what's false. And healing begins when you stop fighting the pain and start listening to it. Sometimes the body screams what the soul can no longer whisper. The anxiety that keeps you from sleeping, the insomnia that haunts you at night, that sudden heaviness in your chest. They aren't isolated illnesses. They're messages from the invisible trying to become visible. The Stoic mind understands that every emotional imbalance, sooner or later, finds a way to express itself in the body. And when we ignore the soul's silence for too long, the body takes on the role of messenger, even if it hurts. Have you noticed how, in moments of emotional crisis, the body reacts as if it's at war? Muscle tension, racing heart, loss of appetite, migraines. These are symptoms of the misalignment between what you're living and who you truly are. It's not weakness. It's a warning. And no matter how much medicine tries to silence the symptom, what you really need is inner reconnection. To tend to your presence like you would a neglected garden, slowly, with care, with patience. Every gesture of yours can be a small reunion. In Stoicism, the body isn't the villain. It's the stage where the soul manifests. That's why the ancient sages practiced self-control not as repression, but as respect for the temple where their virtues reside. Mental clarity is born when you understand that body, mind, and soul are one orchestra. If one instrument is out of tune, the entire symphony loses harmony. Existential depression in this sense isn't a lack of health, it's an excess of disconnection. And reconnecting often starts by listening to what your body has been trying to tell you for so long. There's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from excess, but from powerlessness. A silent fatigue born when you pour all your energy into what you can't control, the opinions of others, the past that won't return, the future that hasn't arrived. And while your mind wears itself out trying to hold on to the uncertain, it forgets the essential. You still have power over yourself, over your habits, your choices, your attitudes. But this territory, the only one truly yours, is being neglected as if it weren't enough. In Stoicism, there's a clear and liberating principle: absolute focus on what depends on you, nothing else. Marcus Aurelius, even as Emperor of Rome, knew his peace wasn't in the events around him, but in the response he gave to them. And today, with all the resources we have, we remain slaves to an illusion that if we try hard enough, we'll control the world. This makes us anxious, fragile, confused, because it's impossible to find mental clarity by trying to manage the uncontrollable. And when you do this for too long, you lose yourself. The Stoic mind flourishes when you start nurturing what's within your reach. A minimal routine of self-care, a short morning read, a commitment not to complain in the first hours of the day. These are small acts, but they're anchors. They restore your sense of autonomy. And when you reclaim that, your inner strength awakens, the one that seemed buried under layers of frustration. Existential depression feeds on the feeling of powerlessness. But every time you act on what depends on you, you weaken that cycle, and you're reborn, little by little. The mind lies, and sometimes it does so with such a logical appearance that you don't even notice you're being deceived. It tells you that you should already be further along, happier, more successful, that with your age, your effort, all you've endured, you deserve to be somewhere else. And this sneaky narrative creates a silent comparison between who you are and who you should be. That's where frustration is born, not from something missing in reality, but from the gap between now and the ideal you've invented. Stoic philosophy is blunt on this. Emotional suffering often comes from resisting reality. Seneca said it's not things that hurt us, but our opinions about them. And expectation in this case is an opinion disguised as a goal. It steals your presence. It makes you chase a future that never arrives, while the present, the only place where life actually happens, passes by like an ignored train station. This endless race is one of the greatest causes of modern existential depression, living as if you're late for yourself. The trained Stoic mind doesn't abandon its dreams, but it learns to dream with its feet on the ground. It understands that true progress is quiet, gradual, almost imperceptible. That the meaning of life isn't in the next big achievement, but in doing well what's in front of you now. Washing the dishes with presence can be more liberating than 1,000 motivational videos. An email written with care can hold more transformative power than hours of procrastination disguised as planning. The secret is simple. Live well today, because when today is well lived, tomorrow builds itself with dignity and without haste. Have you ever wondered why, even after pleasing, performing, delivering, and smiling, you still feel empty? The answer might lie in the hidden motivation behind your actions. Not everything that seems right is virtuous. Sometimes we live like actors, doing what's expected of us, seeking others' approval as a stamp of validation. But that's exhausting. Because no matter how much you do, something will always be missing when the root of your effort is the need for validation. The Stoic soul knows this. It doesn't move for applause, but for integrity. Stoic philosophy reminds us, true strength lies in doing what's right, even when no one's watching. Virtue is what you practice in silence, without an audience, without likes, without reward. And that's where peace begins to grow. When you trade the need to be admired for the commitment to be true, something shifts inside. You start to respect yourself more. Mental clarity returns. Emotional control stabilizes. Because the inner war often is just the conflict between who you are and who you're trying to appear to be. This doesn't mean living in isolation or becoming indifferent, but cultivating a presence that doesn't depend on recognition to thrive. A modern Stoic is someone who lives with purpose, not with a need for acceptance. They know that existential emptiness grows where authenticity dies. And that inner strength comes when you choose to do what's right, even if no one sees. Because in the end, the whole world can applaud you. But if your soul is silent, none of it will taste like truth. There's a part of you that's already wise, that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, that knows life isn't a competition, and that peace isn't in conquering everything, but in remembering who you are. But over time, that part gets buried under the ego. And the ego is needy. It wants to be seen, applauded, valued all the time. And in that pursuit of attention, you start to drift from your most essential human nature, presence, simplicity, the silent virtue that builds meaning from the inside out. The ego traps you because it lives on appearances. It wants the car, the right answer, the like, the approval of those who don't even know your story. And little by little, that prison becomes comfortable. You become a reflection of what the world calls success, even if it goes against your Stoic soul. The result? A nameless exhaustion, an anxiety that grips without reason, a strange feeling of being full of everything but empty of yourself. This is the emotional crisis born when you trade your essence for performance. Stoic philosophy is an invitation to return, a call to release the ego's chains and rediscover the lightness of being whole, even when it doesn't look impressive to others' eyes. When you reconnect with your Stoic nature, you realize you don't need to be more. You need to be real. That it's not about conquering the world, but mastering yourself. Freedom, after all, isn't at the top of the mountain. It's in the act of walking with awareness. And that awareness only awakens when you stop being a slave to image and start being a student of truth. Most people believe pain must be avoided, escaped, silenced, as if it were a flaw of the soul, an interruption of life. But Stoicism teaches something else. Pain isn't the opposite of peace, it's the path to it. What hurts you now, if faced with awareness, can become the foundation of your inner strength. The problem is that we've been taught not to feel, to camouflage, to smile to cover it up. But what isn't healed with truth turns into silent repetition, and it repeats, repeats, until one day you can't take it anymore. This repetition has a name: emotional repression. You're not weak because you feel too much. You're overwhelmed because you were never taught to deal with what you feel. We grew up hearing that crying is a sign of weakness, that complaining is ugly, that showing pain is fragility. But pain doesn't vanish when ignored. It hides in the most dangerous places, in unconscious choices, in toxic relationships, in comparisons with those who have nothing to do with your story. And that's where existential depression is born. When you don't run from pain, but also don't know what to do with it. The Stoic doesn't run. They embrace. They sit with pain like one sits with a teacher. They ask, "What have you come to teach me?" And in that dialogue, healing begins. Because all suffering carries a hidden content, a buried lesson, a call to rebuild. And sometimes, all you need is to stop resisting and start transforming. That's self-knowledge in practice. That's presence and acceptance. It's not about settling. It's about rising. And every time you face your pain with honesty, you reclaim a piece of your Stoic soul that was left behind. You can have a life full of external comfort and still live in inner war. Because peace isn't what happens around you, it's what happens within you, even when everything around you falls apart. Many people spend their lives trying to organize the world, the perfect job, the ideal partner, the routine without surprises. And even when they achieve all that, something's still missing. The mind remains restless, the heart heavy, the sleep light. Because the chaos outside only becomes unbearable when it meets disorder inside. Stoicism doesn't promise a calm world. It prepares you to face the real world, the one that doesn't follow a script, that brings losses, frustrations, discomforts. But instead of running from it, it teaches you to find mental clarity in the midst of the storm. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire in crisis, yet wrote in his meditations as if seeking lucidity in the middle of a tempest. The peace he cultivated wasn't the absence of chaos, it was the presence of awareness. He knew controlling the world was impossible, but controlling his own mind was an art, possible, practicable, necessary. Mental clarity is like lighting a lantern in a dark room. The scene may remain the same, but the way you see it changes everything. And it's this shift in perspective that turns suffering into meaning. When you learn to pause, breathe, observe, and choose your response, you don't eliminate the problem, but you choose not to be its slave. That's emotional control. That's inner strength. That's practical wisdom. The Stoic soul doesn't seek a perfect life. It seeks a present mind. Because where there's presence, even chaos bows to peace. Returning to yourself is perhaps life's greatest challenge. Not because it's complex, but because it demands courage. Courage to stop blaming the world. Courage to let go of excuses. Courage to look in the mirror and admit that, at some point, you forgot who you were. The good news? That path back isn't locked. It's always been open. But it's not lit by external maps. It's revealed as you take internal steps. It's simple. But in real life, the simple is scary. Stoicism doesn't promise shortcuts. It offers principles, small habits, small postures, small decisions that, when practiced consistently, reorganize even the most lost soul. Inner reconnection happens when you start acting with presence, even in the smallest tasks, brushing your teeth, listening to someone without rushing, choosing silence over reaction. The Stoic soul awakens in these micro-actions. Because it's not about a grand turning point, but a succession of calm, conscious, consistent steps that little by little unravel existential emptiness. Real life demands practice, and every restart begins with a choice: to return, to your nature, to your truth, to what, deep down, has always been there. Emotional suffering is often just homesickness for yourself, and every act of courage, even the smallest, rebuilds your inner strength. It's not about 1,000 steps, It's about 1. Returning inward and staying, breathing, reflecting, choosing. That's how you silence anguish, dissolve anxiety, and rediscover life's purpose. In the intimate, in the now, in silence, but with soul. Now that you've made it this far, don't ignore what you felt. If any part of this video touched your heart, then there's something inside you that's still alive, even if asleep. And maybe that's the sign you needed. Not to change the whole world at once, but to change how you treat yourself. Because reconnecting with your Stoic nature isn't an event, it's a daily practice. You don't need all the answers. You just need to start asking better questions. How can I live with more presence today? What truly depends on me? Where am I betraying myself for the sake of appearances? These simple questions, asked with honesty, have healing power. And the answer will come. It always does. When the mind quiets, truth finds space to reveal itself. If this content resonated with you, write in the comments. Today, I choose to remember who I am. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and keep walking with me on this journey of inner reconnection.